Hello, I'm Veronica Getzi, and welcome to I'd Rather Be Cooking. In this episode, we'll be making empanadas, which are basically stuffed pastries similar to the Cornish pasty, Italian calzone, or American turnover. For those of you familiar with the dish, don't be alarmed at the preparation of the dough. I'll be taking a little bit of a shortcut for those weeknight meals where you don't have enough time. I'm going to be using some pre-made pie dough from the grocery store. For those of you fortunate enough to live near a Latin grocery store, you may be able to pick up some pre-made empanada shells from there, which would be even better. So stick around and I'll show you how to make these savory empanadas. Today we'll be making two different types of empanadas, one chicken and cheese and the other beef and cheese. We'll start by marinating the meat. Here I have about 1/4 to 1/3 of a pound of beef fajita meat, or you could also use strip steak. I've cleaned it off and removed some of the fat. And I've also got a small skinless, boneless chicken breast. The marinade is pretty simple. I'll start with some kosher salt, and then we'll add a few more spices. I'll be using 3 types of chili powder. There's regular chili powder, then some ancho chili powder, and lastly, I use some chipotle chili powder. And chipotle is just a smoked jalapeno. I'll also be adding a little bit of cayenne pepper for heat, and you can add more or less of this depending on how hot you like it. Some ground cumin. I actually like to go fairly liberal with the cumin because I love the smoky flavor that it adds. And lastly, some garlic powder. Now, as you see, I'm just kind of sprinkling these on the meat. For some more precise measurements, just check out the website, I'dRatherBeCooking.com, for the full recipe. And also know that you can easily vary the amounts of all these spices according to your own taste. So now we'll want to spice the other side the same way. Empanadas most likely originated in a similar way to the pasty, as a portable meal for the working people. And each region in Latin America has its own type of empanada, using different doughs like corn versus wheat flour. They use different sealing methods also and have different shapes. Some bake the empanadas and some fry them. And in some regions, they even call them by a different name. Like in Puerto Rico, they're often referred to as pastelillos. And in Bolivia, they're often called salteñas. Okay, so now that we've got both sides of the meat seasoned well, what I like to do is add some fresh lime juice. And this not only adds that tangy flavor, but it also helps break up some of the fibers and make sure that the meat is going to be nice and tender once it's all cooked. Now I'll set this aside and let it marinate for 10 to 15 minutes and up to an hour. I usually take this time to prepare the sides like rice and beans and pico de gallo, guacamole, which I'll be making some videos on those topics, so be sure to check the website, I'dRatherBeCooking.com, for those quick and easy steps. Now that the meat has marinated, it's time to grill. You can do this on your outdoor barbecue grill if you'd like, but I'm going to be using the indoor grill pan that I have here on the stove. What I've done is gone ahead and preheated it until it's really nice and hot. Then all I'm going to do is coat it with a little nonstick cooking spray. And now it's ready for the meat. While we're waiting for the meat to cook, this is a great time to start working on the rest of the ingredients for the filling. It's always good to find little bits of time like this where you can do more than one thing at a time and therefore reduce the overall prep time for the meal, and therefore you'll get to eat sooner. First, we'll grate the cheese. I'm using Monterey Jack and a white cheddar, although you can pretty much use any good melting cheese that you like. You could also use that pre-grated stuff that you find in the store, But a lot of times I don't find that they use always the best quality cheese, so I go out and buy myself a big chunk of the good stuff and just grate it myself. I've already chopped up the vegetables, but this is about the time when I usually take to chop them. What you'll need here is a little bit of red onion. This is about 1/4 of a large red onion, as you see, cut up very fine. And then you also need a couple cloves of fresh crushed garlic. And also I've got here a couple jalapenos seeded and diced very fine. You could also use serranos, just depending on how hot you like it. Now is a good time to check on the meat and take it off the grill. I actually took the fajita meat off the grill a little earlier because I want to make sure that it's still pink on the inside, and it took a little bit shorter time to cook than the chicken. So I think the chicken's done now. I'll just remove it to a plate and cover it with some tin foil and just set it aside, let the juices redistribute and cool off a few minutes before we put it in the stuffing. Now let's finish making the filling. I'll go ahead and add the cheese to the onions, garlic, and jalapeno mixture. I'll also add a good amount of salt, as well as some chili powder. Now what we want to do is stir to combine. Now once it's all combined, what we want to do is put half the mixture into another bowl. So we can have one for chicken and one for beef. It's about half. And once the meat is cooled, what you want to do is cut it up into a small dice like I've done here. And we'll put each one into its own bowl. Now what we want to do is stir to combine that. And that's it. Now we're ready to fill the empanadas. Now we'll work on the shells. This is where we'll take that pre-made pie dough and cut it up to the size that we need. First, you want to spread some flour out onto your work surface. This is to make sure that the dough doesn't stick to it. Next, unroll your pie dough and grab yourself a large round cookie cutter. I'm just using about a 4.5-inch fluted cutter. Now one round of this pie dough will give you approximately 5 empanada shells this size. And what you get is 4 out of this first cut. Now I know traditional empanadas are made from a more bread-like dough, but if you don't have the time, this pie dough method is actually really tasty, albeit not truly authentic. If you do want to get a more bread-like dough, you could try using some prepared bread or pizza dough and just following these same steps. Then you'll want to combine all the scraps roll it out again, and cut that 5th one. Now once the rounds are cut out, we're going to start assembling the empanadas. What you want to do is take one of the rounds you just cut and then place maybe about a tablespoon or so of the filling a little off center. Okay. Then what you want to do is take the end and fold it over the filling, meeting up with the other edge. And then you want to push down. To ensure a good seal, what you want to do is take a fork and then crimp the edges. This will make sure that you've got a good seal and none of the filling will fall out. Then you just want to take this and place it onto your cookie sheet and continue it with the rest of the rounds that you cut out. Now once you've assembled all the empanadas, what you want to do is brush the tops with some beaten egg yolks. And here, this took about 2 egg yolks that I've beat together. Then what you want to do is sprinkle the tops with just a little bit of salt. and then a little bit of chili powder. Now they're ready to bake. Now you'll want to bake this in a preheated 400-degree oven for 12 to 14 minutes until it's nice and golden brown. Now, undoubtedly, you'll have some of the filling left over, but don't throw it out. It'll make great quesadillas or a grilled sandwich later. After 13 minutes in the oven, they are nice and golden brown and cooked just right. I like to serve these up with some enchilada sauce. You can generally find some prepared enchilada sauce in the grocery store. I just heat it up on the stove and then place a couple ladlefuls here on a plate. Then I take a couple of the empanadas, place them in the sauce, sprinkle liberally with some of the remaining cheese. And as you see, I've got it served up here with some refried beans, some pico and guacamole, and it makes a great weeknight meal. Check out the companion videos on I'dRatherBeCooking.com on how to make pico de gallo and guacamole, as well as some great dessert empanadas. It's a tasty way to finish a meal. So thanks for joining me. I'm Veronica Getzi, and I hope to see you next time on another episode of I'd Rather Be Cooking.